How's it going, everybody? I'm Drifty from Driftwood Gaming. This is going to be somewhat of a different video than what I normally post. Some of you may be interested, some of you may not be interested, but I'm going to tell you exactly what we're going to do right off the bat so you can know. Basically, this is just going to be a devlog, as I'll probably put in the title, to show what I've been up to in GameMaker Studio 2. Specifically, the new project that I haven't even announced, which is an RPG made with GameMaker Studio 2. Well, what hopefully will become. Working on my demo reel. We're just going to have a little discussion on what I'm trying to do, and there will be some tutorial content in this video, but nothing specific or like honed in. I'm going to try to do some more specific shorter tutorials on like I'm thinking like a couple minutes, like 3-4 minute tutorial on how to do something very small, or a description of a function, or how to use a function. I'm trying to restructure the whole tutorial, so there will be more tutorials, but I'm trying to figure out the best structure. I think I have a good idea what I want to do, but also on top of that, I figured since those are going to be short content, very, very small videos, I also want to have some sort of big substance where we can have longer periods of time, and sort of also background noise where you could work on your projects without having to completely focus on what's on the screen. So it's background noise, me working on projects while you're working on projects, so we're like working on a team or something. If you want to enjoy this content that way, that's perfectly fine. But yeah, that's basically it. We're going to look at the current state of DriftBot, and before we look at the new project. This project is getting close to completion. It's almost done. Technically it is done, but it's missing some polish, and it's definitely missing all of the sound effects and the background music. So I'm thinking of 1 or 2 background musics to throw into this project, as well as maybe like 10 or 12 different sound effects that in the specific times and when they're needed. But yeah, we'll play through the game, and it's not in its exact final form, but it's pretty structured to be where I want the tech demo to be, because as usual, when you get to the end of your projects, you're always wanting, there's always going to be more features that you wanted to add that just haven't been put into the game. And sometimes you just have to narrow your scope a little bit and move on to the next project if things start to get stale, or you've got so many systems that those systems you've already put down are limiting expansion into newer systems. So when you code something or you design something, you kind of like put yourself down a path or a tunnel, and if you build some sort of structure that only goes these 2 ways, well, you can't go that 3rd way because of the way you've structured it. So sometimes you have to take it all down and rebuild the roads, or the code, so that it goes to the 3 ways instead of the 2 ways. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's sort of where I'm at on my RPG project. I've built the code to set up the turn, which we'll get into later on, but I've encountered some errors, and I figured out the error, but that's going to result in rewriting the system from scratch, because I structured it in such a simplistic way that it limits me from doing the next thing I wanted to do. So it's always a learning process when you're going through your projects, and I highly recommend doing something like what I'm doing. Do like a demo reel where you put together a lot of projects using multiple engines, just to create even in that folder, your demo reel or whatever. You also have a collection of any assets you've created. If you've made your own music in your demo reel, your assets folder that you're going to be taking to your interviews or whatever, or sending, you want to include all your original works as well. So any sound effects that you've made, original work, as samples, you want to include all of your artwork that you've drawn, that you've sprite work that sprites you've created, background arts, whatever artistic thing that lends to the field. You want to include that in the whole package of what you can do and what you have to offer as a member of a team of people whose goals are aligned to create a piece of software via a game, and market and publish that without having to find a publisher, self-publish a title, and that's your guys' goal, is to, you know, the whole team is to make money off of doing something that's is fun for everybody to do, right? Make games, so making a demo reel is really kind of an important step into getting into the business. It is one thing you can have on your side alongside your resume. That's how I see it anyway. I would love to one day work as a team. You know, whatever my role is, you can't really, I know it's a bad idea to go into a situation where you're trying to get a job in the company and be like, oh, I'll do whatever. You never really want to do that. You want to kind of specifically say, hey, this is what the strongest part I am. This is the strongest thing that well, that's probably bad grammar. I'm best with whatever, particle effects. I'm best with using, I'm best with designing GUI, or, you know, whatever. You kind of want to have a focus, like, even though you're making demos and you're doing it all, and, you know, finding free sprites online and open, you know, Creative Commons support, Creative Commons assets for your projects and everything. Oh, man, I don't really know. I think I got off track there a little bit. But I guess that's the point of this video. It's not a specific tutorial. It's sort of kind of just kind of rambling a little bit and showing the projects. So I should probably get off the rambling and going to show the projects. So we'll go ahead and take a look at where the project stands right now for DriftBot, which originally I thought it would be some sort of like farm sim. It turned into just some sort of very linear kind of thing. Like I said, the vision of your game may not always be what you end up with in your project, but I think the most important part is try to learn things from each project and carry over the things you've learned into the next project. So the first game in your demo reel could be kind of embarrassing compared to the last game that you put into your demo reel. And that's sort of the way you need it to be, so that the newest demo you put into shows something different, but also takes the things that you've learned from the last games and kind of puts more polish onto them. But you also don't want to get too caught up and stuck on one project for too long when you're doing a demo reel, right? You're not designing these games to be marketed. You're designing these games to have proof that you've created something, that you know how to do something, that you can produce a final product, and these are the things that you do know will be shown via the mechanics in the demos that you put out there. If you're really good at designing, you know, graphical user interfaces, then show that in all of your demos. And so even if the studio you're trying to apply for has no intent on making this simulation game, they're only working on, like, say, a specific thing, like a mobile type of gashapon system that's got whatever, right? An RPG type of gashapon system mobile game. But that's the studio that's going to be paying you, so you take the offer that you can get, and you bring to the table, now you've made RPGs, you've made simulation games, you made this, you made that, you made action games, you made shooters, you made this and that. They're not going to use any of that knowledge. But if you are good at making the GUI, you can still translate the graphical user interface from your shooter game, the things you've learned on how to do from your shooter game, into your gashapon mobile game. Right? You can take the GUI elements that you've learned how to do inside of your strategy simulation game and combine those with the things you've learned from your other demo reels, or your other games in the demo reel, to kind of fuse together a beautiful blend of particle effects and sprite manipulation for artwork and just overlays and maybe even menu systems, and using like 9-slice methods to reduce the size of, like, you could have huge menus with very small file size, which is important for mobile. So basically what I'm getting to is, even though this project will be like a shooter game, the things you learn in this shooter game could apply to the next 20 games that you make, whether those are for the demo reel or for paid work, contract work or salary work or whatever, right? So yeah, definitely try to make different projects and take the things you learned from those projects and try to reuse them and reiterate on them and try to make those things become staples of your toolkit that you know how to implement, so that making a game in the future, the next game will always be, I don't want to say it's always going to be easier, because the scope of games determines also the difficulty of producing a final product, but I guess what I'm saying is practice is the only way to get better at it. So if you want to make games and you want to make money making games, don't spend all of your time on one project. It's better to build 10 projects, very small projects, put those together, take pieces of what you've learned from each of those projects, 20 projects, however many it takes till you feel that you've got a firm grasp of the whole thing, the whole spectrum of things that you might encounter. Of course, working as a team would make this way better, because you guys could all sit down as a team and talk about, all right, so this is the style of game that we're going to make. You guys could come to a decision on who's good at what. That's the first thing to do when you're working in a team. Who's good at what, and try to split up the tasks, because not everybody should be doing everything when you're working in a team. You need to decide who's best at handling the artwork, but not only who's best, because it's not always about who's best, because it's a team effort. So you can maybe take the person who's best and put them in charge of the other people who are going to be drawing, so that the person who's got the most experience is now the lead art person, working with 2 or 3 other people who are also designing sprite sheets and PNG files and background images and assets for the game. But the reason why you want to kind of put somebody in charge, the most experienced person in charge for that, is because you want all of the artwork, who are made by different people who have all come from different backgrounds and different influences, to kind of have a cohesive kind of look. You don't want it to be like 7 different art styles inside of one game. Sometimes that could work, but most of the time you want to have like a cohesive look or style, or especially when it comes to the size of the images and how they're exported. So you need to come up with some sort of structure, like, okay, we need all of our character sprites to be 128 by 128 PNG files, and we're going to need so many frames of animation. So you need to kind of come together and make documents and really make a lot of notation as to who's going to tackle what job and to what degree everything needs to be completed. But that's not the only part of making the game. A big part of it is trying to do things in order. Because obviously you want to do a big list of everything that you're going to want, all the features of your game right off the top. And you want to put all of them in, but you know from experience, or if you don't trust me from experience, you're probably not going to be able to fit every one of those ideas that everybody comes up with. So you have to decide early on what's going to be easier. Honestly, you're going to have to pick what can we do quickly and easily, and with the, what do we all have or what does somebody in the team have the knowledge to do quickly without much of an issue. So those features will be pumped out quick, so that they can be integrated as the structure for the game to also work around. I don't know. What I'm trying to say is you need to build a structure for your game and build things in order. Because say you have like a multiplayer, or maybe you're making a game that's got like a multiplayer system on it, right? But the team is running out of money, everything's falling behind, and the multiplayer system could have taken up a big part of the team's resources. Say it's 30% of the whole game is because of the stuff that's revolved around multiplayer system. Well, if it comes to the point to where the project's not complete, sometimes you could either bankrupt the company and never release the game, or you could just cut the multiplayer. And if that was such a big part of the team, a big part of the time that it would take, imagine how much time you would have wasted if you guys have been working on the multiplayer for the whole month, oh, say a year for the game. Say you've been working on the game for 10 months, and the multiplayer is almost done, but it still needs quite a bit to go. And if you decide to cut it at the last couple months, well, it's not going to save you as much time as it would have saved you if you would have, within the first month, came up with a structured list of plan and things and how long everything is going to possibly take to do, and cut multiplayer from the beginning, because you could see it's going to take you 15, 16, 17 months to finish the whole project based on how much money you guys have. So early on when you're making the game as a team, get that structured list. So yeah, I know, I apologize, it's more ranting, but that's sort of the idea behind this video. It's not a structured tutorial, it's an overview of things I feel like I need to talk about, and things that also I reinforce upon myself. Yeah, basically also just trying to interact with you guys. I hope I get some people talking with this video, so I can get some comments about game design, and not just a particular project or not just one person's game, but just your project and you. And I want to hear about you in the comments. I want to hear what you're working on and some of the things that you've learned. I like to share knowledge that I've learned in this industry, and I love to hear comments about people giving advice to me about what to do for situations I'm in too, because I do that with people, and I'm not above receiving advice, and I always appreciate somebody who educates me about things, you know. So please feel free to leave comments in this video about any of the topics I discuss over the course of this whole video. Let's go ahead and move on a little bit to more off the ranting and on to some more showcase. In this project, the title screen right here, I made this background art in about 5 to 10 minutes, messing around super quickly with, I think it was Pixlr. And I liked how Pixlr had some sort of fill in the blank space feature. So even though you could see all kinds of like slash little lines and all this detail, I didn't actually spend, you know, what you would expect for a like super high number of lines, you know, 30 minutes on it or whatever, an hour on it. It only took me 5 minutes. I mean, it's a piece of crap art, right? Let's get it. But the idea is, I did this super fast, and I liked the Pixlr's kind of like, I would just go up and down a few times, and it would automatically like do these lines across and fill in the sides. And add texture and shading built in with just the draw, and that was really cool. So you guys can check that out and make some interesting, maybe even abstract art with it, just from the draw tool, because it has some sort of shading effect to it. Very different. I thought it was cool. So I made that jokingly to test out the Pixlr, and I thought, well, I don't have a title. Excuse me, I don't have a title screen. Well, it's gonna go for the title screen. It's crappy art, but it doesn't matter because it's custom. I made it and it's there. So I'm not too worried about how crappy it looks for the artwork in the background. I'm holding the left mouse to do like a explosion type. This is a combination. I learned this from Heartbeast. It's a technique of basically just creating particles, and then calling those particles in a script, but also repeating them in the script. So here's the script for this. So you create two temporary variables, argument 0, argument 1, because we're going to be calling this, right? We're going to say create underscore explosion with passing an x and y in another thing. And what this is going to do is let us use this code no matter what we put for x or y. And this just makes it interchangeable. So we're using a repeat thing here to say, do this thing, instance create layer. Now this is actually creating objects, right? Do this 3 times. So we're creating 3 objects, and also create 1 particle. Create, you know, particles create. So we're using this object, which is holding the particle system. We're passing in x, and y, or, you know, we're passing in the x and y location. Where do we want the particle to be displayed? And we're saying, use this particle. So use this system, which is stored in this object, but use, oh, come on, stop doing that thing here. Use this particle, which is stored in the same object here. And use this many number of particles. So we're creating a couple of particles. That would be very minimal. But we're also creating 3 OBJ explosion parts. So we're creating an explosion 3 times right here on the top particle layer. Which could actually be on the instance layer if I wanted. But anyway, at this location. Our X, X, our Y, Y, plus a certain amount, a random amount between 16 plus a random amount between 0 and 32, and your Y input minus 16 plus a random amount. So basically, it's creating 3 of these objects, and it's creating particles. So there you get the 1 particle of an explosion, as well as 3 objects that are created when you whenever you call this script, which is being called when we left click on that title screen. So let's look at the object explosion just to get an idea of what's happening here. If I can find it. Was it explosion part? I think it was this one. Explosion part, that's right. Okay. So basically this is doing the same thing that's in the script. It's saying particles create, create this particle, which is stored. I can just expand this out right here. Boom, that's much better. So we'll say create this particle 1 time, from this object at this location using this particle system, which is stored in that object. But do this again, and not only create a particle for the explosion, but create a particle for the smoke as well. So we created, I think Heartbeat does 3. I just do 2. I just changed it a little bit. It's basically the same idea. But basically, it creates 1 particle, and then it spawns 3 objects. Each of those objects is creating 2 more particles, right? But because we're only doing that a small amount of times, it works. I mean, this would lag if you put a big number in there, but it's a small number. So, but all this really needs right here is we're giving it a speed with a random range. We're giving it a friction so it starts to slow down, and a direction so it knows where to go. We're giving it a random direction so it can go in any direction from 0 to 360. This is what happens at the beginning. We just declare the variables, the built-in variables for the explosion that's being created 3 times when we left click every frame. And then, so we're just getting a bunch of particles. In total, we're getting what, like, how many particles are we getting for each frame? 2 there plus 2. So 3 objects totaling like 5 particles, 5 or 6 particles each frame. So 60 times a second, we're getting all of that happening. And what it boils down to is when I left click, I get that effect. And these particles are actually defined inside a particle system, which we reference, right? And they're right here. So you create the particle system using part system create layer, and you can say what layer you want it to be on. It has to be specific. It has to be a layer there. And you say true if you want your particle system to persist, and I do. So I put all my particle systems at the beginning. I've changed how I do it in the next game, which we'll get into. You don't actually need to create a script to call one thing, right? You don't have to do that. You could just say particles create blah, 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 and even be more specific. So I probably won't do that going into the future. I did transfer some of those over into the new project to do a similar thing there. But yeah, so when you're defining a particle, you just kind of say, here's the system, and you say part type create, and then you specify what you want it to do, and then all of the things. You can see what it's looking for on the bottom right there. And you could use programs. Let me just jump around because this is a very random video. I wanted a large video, a lot of content with a lot of just random ideas and stuff. But anyway, there's the particle designer. I made a video on it. You could check that out. You basically use this to create whatever particles, you know what I mean? Or you could, there's several of these to just create some random ones. We could do a new one right now. Whoa, that looks kind of cool. Really like that. But let's make it die faster. So let's say we'll reduce its life to 20 to, let's say, 40. And does it go away quicker? No. So let's give it, we're giving it gravity here, which I don't see why we wouldn't. Orientation, direction, full direction. Let's reduce its size. Let's say it's 1 to 3. increase will be 0.25, and the wiggle will be 0.25. And then let's see what. That's getting closer. Let's change. Let's see how. I actually like the color of it. I don't want to mess with the color of it. It's kind of cool. Let's change the scale of it. We'll say X is 0.5 and Y is 0.5. Now it's not going to be right. There we go. So now we're getting more of like that kind of pixelated effect. I like that. Let's change the size here to 0.2, max 0.6, increase 0.1, and wiggle 0.5. 0.5 wiggle is too much. Let's just go 0.2 and increase 0.05. Right, I still want it to die off faster. Let's go 10 to 25. Let's see if it goes away before it reaches the end of the screen. Right, there we go. Let's try this. Let's get 6 to 15. There we go. So it's much smaller now. Let's change the size to half of that. 0.1 to 0. Well, I will say 0.4. We'll give it a little bit more of an increase. 0.1. Alright. I actually like this color, but I want it to be a little bit more bright orange. Like that. Yeah. And this one, I like these royal purple colors too. They look good in particle effects. Very cool. So we get that, right? We get our particle effect, whatever it may be. I still feel like it's a little too large, but I'm gonna just go ahead and move on. So when you get your particle effect, I'm just gonna export this to GML file and call it like I don't know, Royal Charge. Just making random words up, and we just save that as a GML file. And inside of Sublime, I'll open it up and file open. You could just import it. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to get the text. You could even open up with any editor you want. So I'll find Royal Charge, open that up. I'm not going to worry about the emitters because I'm going to handle it calling them manually. So I just take this whole particle one thing right there. And once I've got that, I'm just going to jump into my project and add it to the particle system. So instead of doing it inside of this game, I'm going to add it to the RPG project, which I haven't shown you guys yet. Add that particle system in here. We'll just I've kind of consolidated how I handled it, so it's a little cleaner. It doesn't have two objects for the particle. You don't need. You can just define two particle systems inside the same object. Doesn't really matter. So now I need to basically find everything that says particle 1 and replace it with what did I call it? Royal Charge. And then, yeah, replace all. Okay, so we got that. Now we need to take Royal Charge, and since we've created this particle type, we need to, when the game ends, also destroy that particle type. So we're going to say part type destroy, and the index will be Royal Charge inline. So now we get rid of it. We don't have any system memory leaks, and that's basically it. We can call it whenever we want. We'll duplicate this real quick, and I'm going to rename this to Royal Charge. See, I've changed it to P underscore for particle or play. So, you know, particle animation. I'm creating scripts to handle calling particles, and eventually there'll be combinations of particles. And right now they're pretty basic, just like one particle effect. I'll make a system of, you know, using several different particle effects from the same system. I'll put them all in one and create a display of several effects, particles, that create one cohesive, cool-looking effect that some people may even believe it's to be one particle effect. That's the idea in the future. and naming convention P underscore. So even though it's a script, and you could say S underscore for script, whatever, but I'm using P specifically to identify. But basically, I can call that new particle effect anytime I want by going Royal, what did I call it, charge? And I can take this line, just copy this line, and paste it anywhere. On the step event of something, it'll keep playing on when I left click, you know, whatever I want. Or I could just call it with this script by saying P underscore Royal charge, passing in X and Y where I want it to play, and how many particles I want it to play right there. What I could even do with it is say var amount equals argument 2. And what I'll do over here, where it says 6, is I will put in amount. And then I would say comma amount. And now whenever I call this, I can call it passing in the X and Y location where I want it to be, as well as how many particle effects I want to call, without modifying the script. So going forward in the future, I will probably use a third temporary variable for argument 2 and go X, Y amount of particles to be bursted. It makes sense. But we need to test it out too. So what I'll do here is find a location of where, when I want to. We'll go through these objects in a little bit. Where I want to call it. So let's say on the player, on the step, if keyboard check, we'll say whatever button, ord. We'll just say P. If we press P, then open, open, close, close. We need to do that, right? Okay. So if we're pressing P, then we need to wait. Did I do that right? Why is it giving me error here? If keyboard underscore check. Does that not capital? It's not capital. Oh, I have to double quote it. Yeah, that's right. I do. Okay. If we're pressing P, we want to play Royal charge. And we need to pass in an X, a Y, and an amount. So we're going to say X, we'll say mouse X, mouse Y, and we'll say 10. We're passing in an integer value 10. So 10, I wonder if I could pass in a decimal value. Would it mess up? We'll try it out right now. Anyway, if the player's on the screen, if the object's in the map, and we press the left click, then it should display that particle effect we created. Or not left click. Why did I say left click? P. I could have did left click too, but there we go. So now if I have wherever I have my mouse, that's the mouse X and mouse Y location, and I'm using 10 for how many, and I'm holding, if I hold P, then that's what happens. But if I want to reduce that, we'll say 1. And now without affecting the script call at all, we get the 1 per frame. But what this could be used for in the future is when you do an ability, you make one of these scripts, which is a combination of alarms and, well, let's see, a script, can you do alarm of that? Or you have to do it in the object. But basically, you design your skills. And you use particle effects to design the animations for your skills. Right now, we're going to get into this, but I want to go through the other project first. I keep jumping around, but there's a problem in this the way I've set it up, and I'll go through it. Right now, I have attack highlighted when it's the player's turn. We left-click attack. I want another thing to change right here, so we'll probably draw another sprite to lighten this up to show that we've selected attack. But then we left-click on that, the enemy, and it will deal damage, show an animation, and then this thing should attack back, show an animation, and it should be the player's turn again, and this should re-highlight. It doesn't work yet. Right now, I can trigger everything to work, but it doesn't deal the damage to this character. It repeats the processes of showing the animations, the particle effects, instead of just showing them once. It's spamming them, as well as repeating the damage being dealt back to the player. So my code is all borked, and I now know how I have to redesign it. But before I deleted all the code, I wanted to go over some of it to see kind of the structure that I was, the general rough draft logic outline of it, of what I was doing for that. We'll jump back into that. Let's go to the drift bot. Now that we've done the whole talk about some particle system stuff, let's look at drift bot itself. And wait, stop the current running one, cancel. Wait, we're running it. Where's it at? Oh, it's right there. Okay, anyway, so this is just a sprite moving around. This right here is a sprite that's modifying the opacity up and down using a switch to toggle if it's going to be gaining or losing image alpha. I'm doing that same explosion in the background, except for the X and Y, the values I'm setting in. I'm picking a random number between the top left corner here, X1, Y1, and the bottom right corner, X2, Y2. So it's displaying a certain number of this explosion effect in between here and here, and it's picking it at random. So that's the background right there. So basically it's saying press enter to start, letting the player know we press enter and we start. So now right off the bat, the game is ticking away. Every second, every 60 frames, 2 years is passing. We're playing Driftbot. We have to, obviously we're missing the big cinematic at the beginning that kind of sets the scene, so lets the player know what's happening. Basically, you're a machine that's landed on this planet and you have 1,000 years to turn this planet's atmosphere into something that's breathable for the creators of who made you as a robot. You are the robot. And you are designed with technology that can harvest resources and turn those into other resources, aka oxygen. So the time ticks down. This bar keeps going down until it gets to here, and then you know, the current year will keep going, but the bar will stop. And that's when the game over scene happens. If this reaches here before the oxygen, well, if at any point this year goes all the way to here, you know, you get to year 4117, then it's game over. But if the oxygen level gets too full before that happens, it's instantly you win. So that's the win and the lose condition. You can see that I left click, I get a little particle effect. This isn't the effect I wanted. I wanted it to be very subtle, like on some mobile games. You know, like where you just see like interactivity from clicking. It doesn't do anything, but it lets the player get some sort of visual feedback that the click was registered or whatever. So I put that in there. The little orbs are sprites with a particle effect drawn on them, and they're being pointed at a direction with a very small speed wherever the player's at. You can see they're all coming towards the player. If I move over here, they will come at the player. Now this is a simple method that I learned from one of the first projects I made in GameMaker Studio 2, the space shooter game. So this is reiterating on what I was talking about at the beginning of this video, where you take some of the things you've learned from previous projects and you put them into new projects and repurpose that code. So the code that I used to, you know, is very simple code, but bring one object to another object over a set amount of time. I do the same thing in this project, except now when the objects collide with the player, they're not dealing damage to the ship, they're not kamikazing, they're adding to a variable, which is the material resource of the player. So I've repurposed the code. It's the same code, but now it does a different thing. Also, I expanded on it in this project, and to make it a variable number that if I hold the right mouse button, everything speeds up. Well, not everything, but all of those objects speed up. So I still move around and the game is still going at the same speed. It's not actually speeding the game up. It's only speeding up the, well, obviously it's playing a particle effect when I'm holding the right click. So you can see, like, you know, gravitational pull or whatever. So another use of the particle animation thing that I've integrated here, which you can see when I collect them, another particle animation plays, also terminates the particle that's playing on the little green one. But basically, I took that code and I hold right mouse button, and it doubles the speed, or I forgot triples, or it adds to, I think it doubles it. It adds to how fast all of these things go towards the player. Now, obviously, you still don't want to have it. It's not a useless thing, because you don't. It's not something you want to just have on at all times. The reason why is the rate at which the materials, the planet will spawn, you know, the map will generate the materials, is at a set rate. It has some variance, but it's still within a general set rate. So even if I hold the middle mouse or the right mouse button the whole time, towards the end of the game, it's not going to make me have any more materials than if I just didn't hold it the whole time. Right? But why? Okay, so is it a useless feature? No, it's not. Because you're on a timer. So maybe you only need a certain, like maybe you just need 5 more to build that next generator, oxygen generator. Or maybe you just built it and you just need a few more to give it fuel. So how this works is, you collect the materials, you move around with WASD, right click will bring them to you quicker. Time passes. You press spacebar when you have 10 or more materials, and it plants down an oxygen generator. You can see it's not animating right here with no fuel in it at all. So you have to left click it to give it fuel, but you also need materials to give it fuel. So how it works is you've got these 2 bars. The bottom bar fills up over time if it has fuel. The top bar is its fuel gauge. So you spend materials to award fuel to it. You see when I clicked on it, not only did it still do the left click animation, but it also played another animation. If you left click, if you pay attention closely, we've got this animation, but when I click over here, boom, there was another animation that played at the top, a little tiny one. So that's probably need to reverse which one is being called for when I left click and when I left click here. But you can see that's happening. Also, while it's active, it's being animated. So this is a sprite that has several frames of animation in it. And we can look at it right here. And I made this sprite very, very slowly. We'll look at it right here. And you can see it in action. It's going, it's got what, how many frames? 16 frames or something like that? A lot of frames. 22 frames. But basically from one frame I just pushed all of these things down. I didn't know what I was making. It turned out, you know, you make art and you don't know what you're going to use it for, but you keep creating assets and eventually you have a library of them and you can use them in several games, you know, since it's just demo reels or whatever. Or even if they're good enough, you can reiterate on them and polish them up and make them into a final product of a commercial game or something. But anyway, a piece of crap art there and how I made it. Get back to the actual project. What we were doing is we left click on them, and over a certain amount of time these things fill up. They play another particle dust animation. That's the oxygen that's being released into the atmosphere, and you can see as this has happened, we'll go ahead and add some more to it. We definitely need to catch up. We're gonna probably fail at this rate. The oxygen gauge is barely moved, and we're almost out of time. So this game is designed with a time frame in hand. It started off with a 16-minute game time, and I've reduced it to a 9-minute, 8 to 9-minute game time. You could beat it earlier if you're good, if you're really good. So there's another part to this game that we'll get into right now. So we could also place down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I just placed down a bunch of these on the same tile, and they work exactly the same, and there's no way the player can actually screw themselves out. So if I left click right here, you see it took 1 material, but if I left click again, it's not taking the material because it's not it's got enough fuel to where it would be a waste of even a frame if you were to spend a fuel on it at that time. It will wait until it will get every frame out of the fuel you put down for that material before it accepts the left click as consume the material and and fuel the generator. Now right here I placed down like 10 or 20 of them. I think it was like 15 generators in the same spot. Now that works exactly the same, except you can't see because you overlapped them, you know. But you can see that the number of blue rings, and look at all those particles, because we've got like 15 playing at exact synchronization there. Also, you might even be able to notice that it actually moves the oxygen bar a significant chunk. We're about to lose though. Boom. So we lost the game, and there's also a bug at the end that I've got to fix here. What is it looking for? Okay, so when it's game over, unable to find any object for instance 6, name object particle system 1. Create explosion line 8. Oh, there's no particle system. So those particles are still being played since they're persistent, even though the room has changed. But there's no particle system layer on that map. Is that what it's saying? Stack frame is script create explosion called from the generator alarm 15 create explosion. So it's a particle error. So let's look on defeat top particle layer. Now create explosion is the one that's being called because of something, because the last thing that happened. So top particle layer is where it's trying to create object explosion. But inside of our defeat, we have top particle layer. I created that layer there. So I'm wondering what the problem is there. Also, another thing I have to do is on the game over screen, I saw that I had it left over the what do you call it? The generators. So that's a bug I've got to fix before I actually, you know, consider this project done. Which I don't think that's going to be a big problem. I just got to figure it out, which I won't spend too much more time on. I do want to jump into the win condition and also the other part of the game, which is the platformer part of the game. Which, like I said, it's a tech demo, so if I wanted to, I could add more stages, which wouldn't be that hard anymore to add more stages. It's just creating a new room, doing the transfer events, and what I want, you know, deciding what I want to happen, and building the levels so that they're beatable and also not too easy or too hard. But anyway, jump into this. So this is the platformer part of the game. You go up to here, you've got like this greenhouse thing, and you can move around, and this is your character. Now we have a completely different movement system, right? Time is actually frozen inside of the game time freezes while you're on the platformer stage. Now I could change that, but I kind of want to keep it this way to incentivize doing the platformer stage because it'll let you win a game that would be unwinnable after a certain number of minutes if you hadn't done the certain things. This lets the game almost at any point in the game, and if you have at least a few minutes left, be beatable, right? Because when you do the whole platformer, the star right there, I can't remember if it's the star or if it's the actual transfer event, but somewhere along the line, when you beat this stage, you get awarded 50 materials. I believe it's from actually this thing. But you see, now I've got 50 materials. So that kind of jump-started you, and it only took, you know, a few seconds of your real time, and it didn't take any of your game time to get that. So that starts you off to go boom, 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 and then you can spend the rest of the fuel or the materials to fuel it with a left click. And that starts you off pretty strong. You can gather up what's been on the map here. These also do not continue to populate the map while you're not on it. So while you're off of it, you can't just go in here to freeze time, let a bunch of those generate, and then come back and collect them all over a period of like one tick. You know, there's fail-safes or things that are designed in a way that will limit that. Now look, we placed those oxygen generators, right? They're still here on this map. So I've got to fix that bug too. But I do know how to fix that. The bullet thing you see right here was just experimenting how to do like if I wanted to do like a platformer shooter, I know how to do that now. Oops, I fell though. With particle effects and animations and collisions and, you know, everything. I could do a good shooter, a top-down shooter if I wanted to now. But I'm sure there's still tons of things that I wouldn't know how to do immediately, and I'd have to research, because when it comes to making a game, nobody just knows how to do everything at the top. They have ideas, and then they learn methods. They learn methods on how to execute those ideas, right? So, and the code required, and also. But anyway, we got 50 more materials. We could use that to create some more generators. Let's see how fast we can win now. We could harvest up all of these, and, you know, holding right click to speed it up, and then fly. Now, obviously, I would have this multiple stages where it would pick a random stage each time you went to the, once again, the refreshing thing. So distracting. That's easy fix. All I have to do is put a conditional statement on the draw event for the draw self. That's easy. I'll fix that. So we got 50 more materials, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then fuel those up. I mean, if you wanted to do this with the least number of clicks, you would just put all of your generators in one spot, and that's an option you can do too. So see right here, I want to get back to it and get another free 50 minerals, but I also want to get all of my things fueled up. So I'm gathering what's already on the map with a right click to speed that up, to speed the process up. I think it makes more sense this way. And then boom, we can take another 50. This would be another different stage, random stage, and instead of just beating the stage would give you the materials, you would also get bonuses for collecting the stars, and the stars would be in positions that, to collect those stars, might put you back on the map. Also, I might put a timer on the map on some stages. Whoa, I'm just bombing this one. I might put a timer, wow, so that you would get more minerals if you, holy crap. I didn't want it to be super hard, but it can be challenging sometimes. I also made it, I want to make rebindable keys. That's what I'm going to get into later, doing like an options menu, you know, like creating a whole way to do rebindable keys and stuff, which it shouldn't be too hard to do that. But I can see where that I might come across some issues, because I don't immediately know, you know, I just have to figure it out. And then once you figure it out, you'll also forget stuff. So that's why a demo reel could help you, because if you did something in one small project, it'll probably be easier to find the code for that specific thing in a small project than it would be to find that specific code in spaghetti code of a project you worked on for a year, and it's a huge mess, you know, with multiple people working on it or whatever. So smaller projects are also easier to refine that code you wrote or found, or you know, from, you know, the help file or tutorials or wherever you gathered your code. Everybody uses everybody's code, and everybody, like, it's all the same ideas, right? It's all conditions. It's all if this, then that, you know. For this, for each account of this, do this. And having a demo reel will help you with finding the bits of code, because nobody really, like, you know, nobody really memorizes. I'm sure there are a few people who just have pages and pages and pages and pages of complex code memorized, but a lot of the times it's like we'll have an idea, a design pattern memorized, and then we have to figure out the code and the sequence in order to do that design. We have to figure out the structure, and that's where my RPG is at right now. I'm trying to get the design right so that I could put it in order. I want to win this game, and then we're going to jump into quickly the next project, just because I never showed it off yet until this video, and I want to look at the code of it, because I know some of you out there are just way better than I am at programming, and I'm hoping one of you can leave me a comment with a good idea, or even if you just will leave any comments. I want feedback. I want people. Hopefully this video will engage some people with just general ideas. I want to hear what you guys are working on. I want to see some projects that you guys are working on. problems you have with your projects. I would love to tackle some issues, because I know in RPG Maker, a lot of the things that I've learned, and kind of even staples to this day, are things that I didn't initially, because nobody initially knows anything. But it's like, it wasn't something that I had learned from previous games that I've made. It was from trying to help people figure out something with their game that led to the reason I know how to do that. I want that same thing to happen with GameMaker Studio too, so that people can ask me questions and things that I don't know and they don't know. I could help them figure it out, and then we both now know. And anybody who watched it and figured it out with us also knows, you know. And it's sort of like community service. When people share ideas, you're helping the community. You're helping the next generation of people who are making video games do a better job by providing them with resources and asking them questions on how to overcome certain obstacles, and how to code certain things, and how to design certain features. And so when you comment to somebody's question on the forum, you're contributing to the overall society of the overall industry of the next generation of game developers. Even if it's in a drop in the bucket kind of way. When you make a tutorial video, all of you other content creators, I love watching tutorials for RPG Maker, for GameMaker Studio 2, for Photoshop, for just you know, for all kinds of different software applications. And hopefully, and I can see the reason. I love getting comments that people say thanks for what I do, and every time that it helps somebody with their project, it makes me feel good, and so that's another reason why I continue to do them. And I just want to encourage more people to interact with the community. You know, post on the forums and interact with the comments on tutorials, and try to make your own systems, invent your own systems, and code your own design, code your own systems, and share those with people. Even if you're not really good with speaking, I see a lot of good educational videos that just have text on them. They're not as entertaining. Some of them are, actually. Some of them are more entertaining, especially like vibratos. But you know, like you can still make it work. I mean, look at Yanfly's channel. You don't have, you know, you still, it's amazing what they do, because they're still able to deliver personality without actually being super personal, right? They're able to deliver personality through caricatures. I can't even speak. You know, like Yanfly's got the rabbit, Tigress has got the little tiger, and so they're able to do that because of the video content and the character. Oh, we won, but we still have a bug. We still have a bug with it's a particle error. So we still had an amount of time, right? And we filled up the oxygen level. We won the game right there. You win. We still have to adjust the draw phase, right? The draw step of not the draw event on the oxygen generator, so that it doesn't draw anywhere except for where it's supposed to on that map. We also, and that's part of the reason why it's crashing, because it's trying to do the particle animations, and I mean, okay, the particle systems are persistent, so they should last through any map, and it's asking to be drawn on top particle layer. Is it a typo? I'm wondering. Is it a typo? Do we have a typo somewhere, and that's the whole problem? It's definitely not the transfer event. It's the oxygen generator. So on the draw event, if the data manager is generator visible, so if this switch is true, then we draw self and draw the GUI. Otherwise, oh, because we've got to draw self outside of, that's why right there. That's the whole problem. Because I was trying to do a set fog. I was messing around with something else and put the draw self back on the generator. So now I'm not going to do it because it'll take me like 5-10 minutes. But now when we get to it will no longer draw these when we're inside the platformer stage. It will no longer draw these when we're at the victory stage, you win stage. It will no longer draw this when we're on the final defeat stage. So that will, because of that, the step where it's, what else is happening? The alarm. This is where it's, so therefore the alarm will not go off and call the particle effect, which seems to be what's triggering the crash. So I think I fixed it. I'll have to test it again, of course, before I do the final version. But I still have a lot of polish to put on it. I've got to do all the sound on it. But for the most part, you guys are seeing the final product. For the most part, there'll be more polish, probably different animations, a couple more particle effects, and some bugs, final bugs fixed, as well as, I don't want to say I'm going to do a new stage, because that's building onto a final product. That's not what this project is about. It's not trying to do a bunch of stages. It's trying to just to illustrate the mechanics of what you can do, and you can expand on an idea and the code behind it, and then moving on to a different set of things. So now that I've got the code to do like a shooter game, I've got the code that I can do to set up some simple GUI. I've got the know-how to do, you know, simple sprite particle manipulation, you know, room switching, controlling simple variables and switches, and all of that stuff. Controlling objects and how to reference objects and how to make scripts and how to call scripts and how to, you know, create sprites and how to, like, all of that stuff comes together. So the next project will be better. So moving on to the next project. This is GameMaker Studio 2 RPG. That's what I'm calling it because I don't have a name for it yet. It's another tech demo. It's not going to be a game, RPG game. It's going to be a tech demo, possibly one town. Maybe if I do that, will be a tile set thing, you know, some tile sets for it. There will be some enemy art. It's going to be a basic turn-based RPG with some customization. Very limited progression and customization where the character levels up, selects skills, maybe buys armor. I don't know how I'm going to do armor yet. That's still fucking blowing my mind. On how to do that. I think what I'm going to do is get one PNG file to be like the whole icon PNG. Just like in RPG Maker, how it's all handled with an icon set.png. I want to do the same thing, except make my own icon set type of PNG file and reference each frame, split it up so that when I want to show an item, I call the same sprite, but I give it a different index. Right, so I think, and to manipulate what icon is being called on one location, I'm going to manipulate the index of that same sprite, and that's how I'll handle it. Maybe it'll work, but I'm there's still so much I have no idea, but that's the process of just trying. So when I started this project off, first thing I did was I created a player, and I made this. It's super awesome. I know. Do not praise me, please. Please, I know you're tempted to send me money because you're so amazed at my pixel art. Just refrain for this reason right there. You don't have to do it because I'm so amazing at pixel art. Anyway, imported some other random BS and like a battle background. I'm reusing resources, which is something you should do when you're making your demos, your tech demos. You want to keep creating new ones, obviously, but you want to be able to reuse assets that you've customly created yourself through each of those demo reels. So by the end of it, like I said, not only do you have your 1020 projects, but you've got a library of custom assets that you can use to your advantage there. Also, I made a simple icons thing here. This is a resource pack that I did not create myself. This is open art, and another thing I want to talk about is credits. So when you're doing your demo reel, you don't have to make all your own stuff. I mean, of course, you're going to need to do some of your own stuff. You're going to need to do a lot of your own stuff. But sometimes you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? You can very easily get some Creative Commons. It's important to kind of make sure you don't overstep your bounds and bit the wrong thing, because a lot of people post things, and just because it's on the internet doesn't mean you can use it in your stuff. But there are hundreds, thousands, probably millions of assets that are on the internet that are Creative Commons license, where you can use in your project if you want to sell it or not. And the people who have made these things, they created them, and they no longer use them or have any intellectual property over on that thing, right? That artwork. So they'll actually say, hey, I made this for a previous game. Now I no longer need this artwork anymore. Have fun with it. And they're not going to care. They give up their rights to that old art because now the stuff they're doing 5 years later is just 10, 20 times better than their old stuff. They're not worried about that because it still looks okay, and some people will want it for their demos and their games. And it may have took them a long time to make, but now they're on to such greener pastures, such bigger things, that they no longer actually care if people use their old stuff. So you want to use that to your advantage, and I'm going to give you a good spot right here. Some of you know about this site already. It's opengameart.org. Now you go here, you can browse all of the art. They got tons and tons of stuff, but if you do decide to use some of this art, you need to do something like what I've got here inside of my project. Where's it at? Come on. Here we go. A little credits.txt inside your note tags of the project. Put it right in the project, I'm telling you. And also your credits menu, or your, you know, when you do your final end credits of the game or whatever, you want to put them, include them. Because tell you what, you'll forget. If you do not write their name down, because there's going to be hundreds of assets that you need, and you're going to forget who made what, when, what kind of art, or what kind of, who did this, who did that, and who to credit for what. So every time you add something new, I think it's sort of your responsibility to, if you didn't create it, you know what I mean, like, it's sort of a responsibility to kind of add that to a text file, because you can't expect yourself to memorize everybody's names and everybody's artwork when you're pulling from hundreds, because we're only human. So write it down. That's with everything, right? You have your ideas. Oh, I'll never forget that. Yes, you will. You'll forget it. Trust me. Just write it down. So here's some things that I've got already written down here for this project that's only a few days old. Cooltext.com. You can get some good logos right there. Let me bring this up. Nope. Let me bring this up. There we go. So opengameart.org, you can get all kinds of stuff right here. What you need to look for are CC, Creative Commons. Now you can look all this stuff on the wikis and look it up. There's even like government websites, I think, that's got this information. So you kind of just want to get Creative Commons, because that's going to let you use it. But also you have to do attribution. If there's copyright or anything like that, sometimes you have to do an attribution, which they'll ask you. If you're going to put this, use this, you have to include whatever and a link, or this and something. So if you want to use these flowers, you have to credit this person and include a link to that right there to use it. So if I were to take this art and save that for the project, I would add this name and this link with the, you know, probably also include the author that's posted this, and kind of put that right in the project itself. So anyway, do a little credits thing. It'll save you some time at the end if you do finally want to sell your project. You know, you'll have to spend less time trying to decipher. You'll have everything organized, stay organized. So we got that. What else did we do? I brought over some of the particle system ideas and script call ideas. So these are all going to be further customized, and I did a naming convention P underscore for a script call, a script that is basically calling particles create. Not messing with shaders yet, something I need to get more into. I need to learn more about shaders. I think, who is it? Sean Spalding has some good tutorials on shaders. In the past, I've watched some for GameMaker Studio 1.4, but I know that Sean Spalding is no longer doing the community relations role, so he's getting more involved with the community, which is weird, because he's no longer contractually obligated to do certain things. He's sort of doing what he wants, and I'm kind of like all on board for Sean Spalding and hope that he continues to make some awesome stuff. I see he's like doing Twitch games, like he's making games that are being integrated to Twitch command, so people could just be watching him live stream it and put in commands inside of the Twitch and control the game from Twitch. It's really awesome. I love what he's doing. But anyway, I know he's got some stuff on shaders. Check that out if you want some information on shaders. Fonts, obviously we got to create some fonts. We're gonna have some fonts for when we're gonna do some text. In this object, created the player. And the code for this is basically I'm setting a couple booleans to select to see if the player is selected, if the player is fading in and out like he is being selected. This stuff doesn't really even need to be there right now. This is just setting up for something I want to do later. Step. So if we're selected, then we're going to say if we're fading out, which is the other switch. So when we are selected, if we're on fading out, then set the image, basically make the image fade out, so lose opacity. And then if the opacity gets to below 70% of its original 0.7, so we're going to fade out is no longer, we're going to turn that boolean off, make it false. So now we're going to say if that boolean is false, then we're going to do the opposite and fade in the picture to give it more of a solid look. It's back to full opacity. And then we're going to say if the image alpha is back to full opacity, fade out is now true. And so it's going to loop that, right? Now it goes boom, 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 boom. Otherwise, image alpha is plus 0.01. Now, I've tried to do this code so many different times. It's a simple thing. And every time I try to add another layer of something simple, the whole system gets more complex. And I'm only scratching the surface. So I'm still learning as I go along, like, how do I even do things, right, you know? So here I'm setting up window mouse get X, window mouse get Y, and just storing them into variables for later. This is something that's always changed, so wherever mouse's X and Y is at, it's going to be changed. So I could reference those things later. I actually changed the system and how I did it, so I don't actually need those. I just left them in there in case I want to do something. And then I'm doing conditional here, so if we're pressing the left mouse button and the this object is where the mouse button's at. Now, someone tell me, what is a better way to do this? There's got to be a better way to do this. So, what I'm trying to figure out the logic for, it's simple, right? I want to left click on something, have it selected, and now it's blinking, right? And if I were to left click them again, they're deselected and they're no longer blinking. Or not, you know, by blinking I mean oscillating opacities. And possibly even doing something with a shader to make it go light. Can't you do something with a shader to make it go white color? I don't know. Some of you are super smart and hope you probably don't even need to watch all of this. Maybe you're watching this because you have a mentality sort of like I do, where I'll watch things that I'll see a tutorial on how to do something super basic. I don't just snuff it off like, I already know how to do that. Because something I learned very early on. Now, I've played guitar for 20 years. Now, I know how to change my strings, right? But I've still watched videos on how to change your strings on a guitar, because there's not just one way to do it. There are 10, 20 different ways to change your strings. So, I'm never afraid to relearn something I already know, because I don't want to make an assumption that I already know the best way. You know, you don't know that it's the best way. Now, sometimes if you can theoretically prove it is the best way, then you've got me there. Then that's the best way. But what I'm trying to get to is, don't be apprehensive to the fact that you can still learn something by watching something you think you already know. And that's all I'm getting at for there. Don't be afraid to watch something that you kind of already know how to do, because maybe this person does it differently. And even if it's not better than the way you do it, maybe there's something in the way that this person does it that you can take and you can use in something you do, even if it's an unrelated kind of thing. So, yeah, even if you know how to do something, don't be afraid to engage with the audience and watch that content if it's something that you think you could even improve at. And I do that. So for those of you in that situation who are far beyond me, please enlighten me and tell me a better way to do that. Thank you so much. Okay, so after that, if keyboard check, we're pressing P. We just did that earlier on. So if we're pressing P, then we want to play this script, passing in mouse X, mouse Y, and 1 as the particle. I actually liked it better at 10, but I think it will do 8. You don't want to do too many particles because it can lag after enough. But I mean, we could actually do a lot without causing it to lag, and just to see what happens. I'm actually really curious what would happen if we did like 50. What if we said 50 particles a frame? So 50 times 60. Whew. So if we press P, whoa. So it's so much that it's almost like a clear picture. Like there's like not even a good amount of space. It's like a circle with, which kind of looks cool. So it'd be like later on when you would call it, it would be like, and then, you know, or whatever, right? And it wouldn't just be this animation. It would be a combination of sound effects, you know, things that make it sound impactful, and charge animation, particle effects. This is one particle effect inside of a system of effects that create the overall atmosphere of the delivery of the animation itself. So I could see animations in GameMaker Studio 2 RPG to be really cool once you get some sort of thing set up, you know. But yeah, so on the draw state, I keep saying step, but on the draw event of the player, we're drawing itself, because if you include a draw, you have to do draw self. But here's where I'm doing the health bar for the player. So we're drawing a health bar at this location, and this could all be on one line, but I spaced it out because it's ignored space anyway, so it works out fine. To make sure that it did, I encapsulated this inside of parentheses, which I don't really think matters too much. But because we're doing this divided by this times this, mathematically, you know, it just makes worse. You want the things, this to happen and then that to happen for it to do a percentage value to go from 0 to 1 to get the bar to go across. So you encapsulate your minimum value divided by your maximum value in parentheses, and you multiply that by 100, and it's going to give you the percentage you need to do the health bar function. Middle click it if you need more information. Did the same thing for mana, and did the same thing for the tech. So we got 3 bars. I don't know if I'll use all 3, but they are there. And oh good, I'm still recording. Okay, and that was it for the player. Then I created another object to be the data manager, which is basically going to just hold information, and the managers are all going to be persistent objects. They're defined inside the room of the title screen, and then they're persistent throughout the game, so that if I need to cross-reference data at any point, they're persistent memory, they're persistent, and even if I'm on an options screen, a room, or if I'm in anywhere in the game, I have access to this information, these variables. So here I put a little restart debugger. I like the idea in RPG Maker. I press F5, the game restarts. I like that idea. So I thought, why not put that in GameMaker Studio 2? It's super easy. It's one line. So you just say if keyboard check pressed VK_F5 game restart. That's it. You know, of course you got to format it right with, you know, you don't even need to encapsulate that. That's I think. You don't even need an inline. To be honest, it's got so much error correction. It would still work. But just format it correctly anyway. Encapsulate it and use the inline. If you were going to do more than one thing, it would look even cleaner if you did this. But that's only if you needed like something else here. Right? Not only would it look cleaner, it would have to be that way because it wouldn't function. It wouldn't work more than one thing on one line like that. But anyway, now we're going to say when the character level, because there's going to be a progression, right? When the hero levels up, how do you make the player level up? How does that function work? Super easy. You say if the hero's experience is greater than or equal than the hero's maximum experience, which are variables that are defined at the beginning. You just define how much is you're going to need to level up. We'll say 100. How much do you have to start? 0, because you haven't done anything. What's your level 1? How many coins you got? Inventory space, and then your maximum inventory space right there. All that was defined at the beginning. This object is created. This stuff is given its value, and then every step of the way, it's doing this stuff. It's checking. On this frame, are you pressing F5? If you are, restart. On this frame, is the hero's experience greater than max? So as soon as it happens, the very frame that it happens, it's going to level the player up. It's going to do whatever you want. Obviously, there's going to be more here. You're going to show particle effects. You're going to call P underscore whatever, right? P underscore, let's do royal charge. Yeah. We're going to call P underscore royal charge, and we're going to pass in X, Y. Actually, we can't pass in X and Y. Reason being, this is going to use this data manager's X and Y, which is going to be just wherever it's at in the top left corner of the screen. It's not going to be anything relevant to the player. We have to reference that object. So how you do that, you just say O underscore player, or whatever you called your player object dot X. So now we're saying the X value of whatever's in that object, and we say O underscore player dot Y. But then on this particular one, we actually looked for a third thing, didn't we? We asked for an amount of particles we wanted to play. So I'm going to just say, yeah, why not do 50? Because it's just going to play one time. Boom. It's going to do all this stuff one time, because once it sets this, it's no longer going to meet the conditions to play this anymore. Because after it meets the conditions, it's going to set this experience to 0, and it's going to say your max experience equals your max experience times 20%. So it's going to take away all of your experience. It's going to make the amount you need 20% higher, which, ooh, exponentially, it's going to slow you down a lot towards... This is going to how you're going to figure out your max level eventually, depending on how much experience you're giving your enemies. You could always change this too, and include multiple things in your formula. But then we're going to level plus plus. So this is just going to make it so that now we're level 2. And whatever stats that are affected by level will be multiplied by that level. So on the player's battle manager, or basically I'm going to be on the battle manager, all of the formulas are set at a value right now to be what they should be at level 1. But the leveling system, when it's completed, will be a lot longer. It's going to be a lot longer of a value. It's going to be like player strength equals a set number plus this variable plus the variable from their equipment modifier plus the variable for this. Plus, you know, it'll be a long, long thing. But right now, inside of the battle manager, it's simple. It's just your strength is 10, your dex is 10, your vitality is 10, your intelligence is 10, mind 10, charisma 10, attack 10, magic tack, all that stuff, right? It's just a set number. So on the battle manager, but we're almost done with the data manager. So then we'll jump to the battle manager. But anyway, after that, we've leveled the player up. We're going to say instance create layer mouse box. Now, what does mouse box do? Now, this is going to happen every frame of the game, right? Because it's a step event inside of a persistent object. So it's always going to happen. It's not inside of a condition. So this is something I don't know if it's the best way to do. And also asking for guidance if anybody knows a better way to go about doing this. But what I'm trying to do is check for collisions where the mouse is at, right? So I'm going to instance create layer, mouse X, mouse Y, on the instance layer, the object mouse box. So what the mouse box is a transparent... Actually, it shouldn't be transparent. It should be a box. It should have a color, but it should have no opacity. That's got to be the better way to do it. So let me do this. Let's go 9 by 9. Reason why I went with 9 by 9 instead of 8 by 8 is because you want a center point. You just want a center point because it's going to be the center of that box is going to be the radius of like and the reason why I'm doing a square instead of a circle is just because it's more memory efficient. I can where's it at? On the collision mask, it's just much easier to just go automatic or full image than you know, rectangle. You know what I mean? If I wanted to do like a circle, I would probably have to do a precise, which is a slower type of collision calculation. So automatic rectangle or even full image, probably automatic rectangle is the best collision for memory efficiency. Correct me if I'm wrong. Please let me know whatever I get wrong. As far as I know. And when it's created, we want to image alpha equals 0. So now the box is still red and it's still in that location, but it's invisible because the alpha is 0. So the player will no longer see it. Now I don't want the player to see this red box, but I need something there, an object there, that I can reference in order to detect collisions, right? I have to detect collisions somehow with the mouse at some point. So the way that I've thought about doing this is, let's see, where's it at? Inside of this data manager, every frame of the game, I'm creating this object. This object, when created, makes itself invisible and triggers alarm 0 to go off in 2 frames, almost instantly. So in 2 frames, this thing destroys itself, and that's all it does. But for that 1 frame, for those 2 frames, it only needs to be 1. I did it 2 just for safety, just so that if it logically will work, then it should do. If it logically will work with 1, it should work with 2. So for those 2 frames, where the mouse is at, there's a 9x9 square object that's invisible that I can use as a way to detect collision. So now I can use that. Now I forget where I actually incorporate that. Is it on the attack, I think, or is it on the blob? Display actions, is it on the blob, which is the enemy? I'm just trying to find the code while it's relevant. If I don't see it, we're going to move on. It's probably for something that I'm still working on that I haven't actually did the object for. I can't remember, but it will come back to me. But I need some way to detect like a collision with the mouse. So like when I click on something, I can do a check that says if I've left released or if I've left pressed, and not object exist, but place meeting object. You know that code? Place meeting. Is that what it is? This one. Right. So, yes. So, I needed this so that I can go O_mousebox for a collision thing. So, like, if an object is meeting this mouse box, and we're pressing something, like, so if keyboard, or no, if mouse button, is that how it goes? If mouse check? It's not highlighting because I've got something after it. If mouse button, mouse check button. And then we do what? MB something left. Something like that. Yes. So, okay. If we're pressing the left mouse button, and this object is at the same location as the mouse box. Right, so, okay, I'm missing something. If mouse check blah blah bitty boop, like that, and place. I mean, I could encapsulate these like that, but oh, I see. I could get rid of. I believe I can get rid of this and have to include that. Wait, no, here we go. Yes, that looks better. See, now it's all inside of one encapsulation, which I believe you don't actually need. Man, syntax gets me hung up a lot, even with JavaScript, all of it. Like I know the design, I know the idea, I know how I want it to work, but then I'm like, okay, what was the code? Was it this letter? Was it that letter? I know that affects a lot of people. But this is how I'm using the mouse box, right? So if I press, like, say this was a button, it's an attack button when I click it. So when I click on this, it's doing it on the steps, so every frame of the game is checking. If the mouse button is checked, mouse button left, and the place meeting XY mouse box, right? Like that would work, right? Because see, when I have left released here, it's just like if this is the simple way, right? You add another button, right? You whatever for the mouse. how do you do all that for... How do you do all of that for in the step? I know it's just like keyboard, mouse check button, and stuff like that, but don't you need an object to reference the place meeting? Anyway, the more you learn, the more questions you're going to have, and that's natural. So, anyway, pretty much done with this video. It was a long ranting video asking lots of different questions inside of GameMaker Studio 2 and just game design in general. Also went over a lot of the things that I've been working on in the past couple of weeks, as well as ideas for the tutorial videos in the futures and the basic project path for what you can expect to see in the future. There will be these devlog update videos periodically. I want to say once a month, but no set schedule. Whenever there has been a significant chunk of progress, or things are changing in a certain way, or I just need to interact or rant, there will be this sort of content. But for the most part, I figured what works best for the GameMaker Studio tutorial series is very short, very specific, small tasks that can be challenging, but if you know the process are simple. I want to do videos where I demonstrate the process of doing something like that. Like, for example, how do I make an object move across the screen? Now, that's a simple thing, right? And I narrowed it down, I made it really, really simple. So, it would be a video, very, very short, a few minutes, to show that very small process to do that. And that would continue to go into more advanced systems, but trying to, even when it comes to a complex system, it would have to break down into a playlist of several small, easy to learn sessions, things to do, right? Step 1, we make a basic outline. Step 2, we lay down some structure for that. Step 3, we figure out what functions or methods we're going to use to get the desired outcome, and step 4, executing everything together so that you don't have confliction errors and your code is not buggy, and that could be a several step process. But also, like, step 1, how do you do this? How do you make the character move? Step 2, how do you create a new object? Step 3, how do you... Now, I've already done these, right? So they're going to be in the next things. They're not going to be how to move and how to create an object, because we've already done that, and it's already out there, and it's super easy. But this is the general idea. How do I animate my sprites? And that could be like a 5-minute tutorial. So that's the idea behind the tutorials in the future for GameMaker Studio. But also there will be these devlog updates for like ranting and stuff like that. But really, I mean, we've gone off on a lot of subjects. I really think I feel better about letting you guys know about everything that's going on in the stuff that I haven't told you guys about, the projects I'm working on, and the code, and I really would love to see any feedback. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about anything I've talked about, and there's a lot of different subjects in here. If you have ideas on how to improve what I'm working on, or let me know about what you're doing. Hey, tell me, what's up, Drifty? I'm working on a project right now where I'm doing a top-down shooter, and it's a game where you have knife fighters, and you have to throw knives, and blah blah. You don't have guns, you have knives, and I'm using this function to do something. I would just love to hear that. I'd read every bit of it. I don't respond to every comment, but I read every comment, guys. I read it all. I practically live and breathe YouTube and you know, my Discord server. So, yeah, please interact. Let me know. Smash that thumbs up button if you did enjoy this video. I'm going to cut it off right here. I feel pretty good about this long rant thing. And hopefully you guys have enjoyed it, and maybe just had some background noise. So if you use me as background noise, I'm working on my project, you're working on your project. That's totally legit. I totally respect that, and it still supports the channel, so Good stuff, man. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you all to the Patreon. Thank you so much, you guys, to the Patreon supporters. You guys are making it happen, and I just love you guys so much. Everybody who supports the channel, even if it's just saying thanks for the video, or thumbs up in the video, or sharing it. If you share my videos with other people, then my hat's off to you, because that really is where it impacts the most. When something I've done has had some sort of impact where you feel like, you know what, I think somebody else should see this, and you from your word of mouth, coming from your word of mouth to this person will probably be more impactful than if they just saw it on their own. Saw me, you know, because you would probably have more influence with that person than I would, maybe, most likely. So the fact that you would share a video would be super important, and I think it's super cool, and I really appreciate that. But thank you guys so much for watching. This has gone on long enough. I love you guys. We'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.